Endlessly talking about the biggest stories that matter to you the most. Breaking news, John Calipari is finalizing a 5-year deal to become the Arkansas Razorbacks' next head coach, covering college sports like no one else. The biggest guests in sports. We now welcome in Hall of Famer Jim Calhoun.
Such a pride I had, I came to connect.
The legend, Tim Tebow, joins us.
We'll run it back. I like it.
The legend, Herschel Walker. Welcome in, everybody. Little Thursday morning edition, Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Torres. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's having a great day. We got ourselves a monster Thursday show. Boy, oh boy, is there a lot to talk about. So I want to open with the Florida coaching search, which may be hitting a snag. Did you see that story yesterday? John Summerall was set to interview, then he wasn't. What's really going on? And I think the bigger question, all the chips are in the Lane Kiffin basket. What happens if they don't end up with Lane Kiffin? From there, we will talk a little bit about the weekend ahead in college football. Really more of a this is what's at stake in the playoff picture. Oregon, USC, some big stuff out of the Big 12 and the SEC. All those good vibes in Oklahoma go away pretty quickly if you don't beat Missouri, so we'll discuss that. And finally, we will wrap because the Arizona Wildcats took it to my UConn Huskies. And when I say take it, it was a close back-and-forth game. Unbelievable game, unbelievable finish. I think we see these guys again late into March and maybe early April, so we discuss that. And why I think Arizona now should probably be the number one team in college basketball. Before we get started, a couple quick reminders. Make sure you're subscribed. Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel. YouTube, we are closing in on 66,000 subscribers. I think we get to 70K before the end of the year. Can you help make me? Can you help me make that happen? Tell a friend. Tell mom. Tell dad. Tell grandpa. Tell grandma. Tell your son, tell your daughter, tell your dog. I don't really care, but let's get the word out about the Torres Pod. We're doing awesome stuff. We appreciate everybody's support. Also, if you do listen on Apple, Spotify, make sure that you are subscribed. If you want to help, leave a 5-star rating and review. Also, before we get started, I do want to thank our hotel and casino partners, Circa Sportsbook, Circa Casino. Love working with Circa. So grateful for the opportunity. I will be out there next week in Vegas because we got the Players Era Tournament in college basketball. I'll actually be spending Thanksgiving with the family in Vegas. Long story, whatever. Bring it up solely to say that if you're in Vegas, it's the best place to watch sports. Unbelievable. Biggest sports book in the world, quite literally. Stadium Swim is unbelievable. But here's the thing. You don't even have to go to Vegas anymore to experience Circa. That is because they have opened up the brand new Circa Sportsbook in Mint, Kentucky Downs in Franklin, Kentucky, okay? So all of the same great hospitality, great views, great vibes of the Vegas location just brought to the East Coast, about 40 or so minutes from Nashville. Just hop on the highway, get down there. Closest sportsbook to Nashville as far as I know. And what I love about Circa, man, they take care of you. It's a great place to watch games. And in this era where I saw MLB now, you need Netflix to watch MLB and you need this platform and that platform. You don't need them if you go to Circa Sportsbook in Franklin, Kentucky at Mint, Kentucky Downs. Thank you to Circa Sportsbook for their support of the Aaron Torres Pod. All right, with that said, it is a busy Thursday across the world of sports. There is no more time to waste. Let's go ahead and get to the topic of the day. Topic of the day, this is going to be a largely Lane Kiffin free episode. Okay, it's not going to be totally Lane Kiffin free, but we've led with Lane Kiffin about 8 straight episodes. But I do want to talk about the Florida Gators because Florida, to me, is just a fascinating setup and a fascinating location and a fascinating job search in general, okay? We've basically known since week 2 they were going to get a new head football coach. And I think what's interesting is a couple things. One, to their credit, they fired Billy Napier about 5-6 weeks ago, whatever it was. And really up until about this week, there really were no leaks to speak of. Now, maybe it's a bad thing because maybe it means that Scott Strickland has done so many of these freaking searches at this point that, he knows how to run one quietly. But really, there were no leaks up until about a few days ago when it really only came out because LSU was bringing Lane Kiffin into town, and we found out that she had been in Gainesville the day before. but there have been no leaks, and really everything has been centered on Lane Kiffin. Well, I bring it up because, kind of in the back of my head, I've always kind of sat there and said, is there a backup plan? What's going on? What's the deal? And what happens if Lane Kiffin just decides to go to Ole Miss? Or, the new wild card is, where does LSU fit into this equation? LSU is a great job, great recruiting base. We don't have an answer, right? But I bring it up because it's just something I've wondered is, what is Florida's backup plan? You have to have a backup plan to some degree. And so on Wednesday, I think we may have sort of possibly seen what the backup plan could hypothetically be, because we got some very interesting reports about a friend of the Aaron Torres pod, John Summerall. Okay, so John Summerall is the head coach at Tulane. Tulane's awesome. Great program. Remember, they beat Northwestern this year. They beat Duke this year. Couple power conference wins. Lane Kiffin himself said this guy's going to be coaching in the SEC before long. And so I only bring it up because, it's been a pretty quiet couple weeks for him. Tulane is obviously battling for the American Championship, which would get him the Group of 5 playoff bid almost certainly. But then on top of that, his name has kind of been linked to Auburn. His wife went to Auburn. He's from Huntsville, Alabama. Obviously, I think at this point we're trending towards Kentucky not being opening, but he played at Kentucky. So everybody wants John Summerall. And then out of nowhere on Wednesday afternoon, we get this report from On3. John Summerall is interviewing with the Florida Gators. Okay. So fascinating piece of news that comes out at about 3:04 Eastern time via Florida's On3 outlet. Oh, by the way, our buddy Graham Hall, a guy who I respect greatly, met him at the Final Four last year, reported pretty much the same. The issue becomes less than an hour and a half later, it is reported by the same On3 outlet. Yeah, John Summerall is actually not interviewing at all. Okay. So within an hour and a half of each other, you have the report from On3 that an interview is happening. Then the update about 4:30 Eastern time, you have scheduled meeting with John Summerall has been called off, and Summerall is removing his name from the mix in Florida's coaching search per Pete Nakos. And so it was a weird storyline that wrapped up quickly. And then, oh, by the way, just to kind of rub some faces in the dirt, John Summerall himself started tweeting later on Wednesday night, tweeting, quote, "This is the most important meeting I have all week, our Wednesday night meeting with the quarterbacks," then tagged On3 Sports in the tweet. And so what's really going on? What happened? I've heard two different variations. I want to talk about what I think happened on Wednesday, but then as importantly, what the heck is Florida going to do if Lane Kiffin doesn't end up being their head coach? Okay, so first of all, what do we think happened? I've heard two different variations of this. The first one is that basically Summerall doesn't want Florida and maybe isn't even a candidate at Florida, but that basically his agents leaked this story to maybe get whoever he wants to hire him, essentially start making moves. I think we all understand that probably Auburn is the leader in the clubhouse for his services. We just talked about it. Wife went to school there. He's from Alabama. He coached at Troy. And so I just bring it up because I think that was part of it is the argument of they want to get Auburn moving. They want to get maybe LSU moving. Those schools are not moving fast enough. I don't know that I totally buy that was the case. Okay. And it's really two reasons why. Really three reasons. One, John Summerall's got enough to worry about without worrying about signing a contract with Auburn or LSU, today. He could be, we talk a lot about Lane Kiffin coaching into mid-December. He very much could be doing the same. If they win the American, of course, they're going to go to the college football playoff, and he will be playing the third weekend in December in an opening round of a college football playoff game. Beyond that, it's also worth noting, I don't think Auburn's ready to make a final decision. What if DJ Durkin and Auburn beat Alabama, knock them out of the SEC championship game, knock them out of the playoff, and they win 30-3, and DJ Durkin all of a sudden is going to have a legitimate shot at that Auburn job. And with LSU, who the heck knows what's going on there? But there's certainly the possibility that there are other candidates that they are vetting at this point, and maybe some wild cards that we don't even know about. And so I bring it up because those are the reasons that I don't really buy the notion that he leaked that, his camp leaked this story. I would also say this. It feels weird to me that a power agent, would be leaking stuff to local media, whoever the agent is. I think he's repped by Jimmy Sexton. I'm not 100% sure. You mean to tell me a Florida beat writer is going to get a text from Jimmy Sexton and not have their antennas up? So to me, that story doesn't really make sense. Why would a Florida reporter report this? To me, it feels like basically this came from someone at Florida, which leads me to theory number 2 as to what happened on, I guess it was Wednesday afternoon. What I believe actually happened was that someone at Florida leaked that they were meeting with John Summerall, and that John Summerall was not happy about it, and that John Summerall said, listen, if I can't trust you to keep this behind closed doors, this process is over. I am not a candidate. Don't make me a candidate. And the old, after a bad first date, lose my number, don't call me again, okay? And that may seem hyperbolic. It may seem whatever. But you know what it actually reminds me of? It reminds me of exactly what John Summerall said on this podcast about 2.5, 3 weeks ago when we had him. So we had John Summerall on during their bye week in the lead up to the UTSA game. And I asked him point blank, you played at Kentucky, and I'm paraphrasing. I didn't ask it this eloquently, but you played at Kentucky. You're from Alabama. Your name, and this is the part that I did ask, is being linked to all sorts of jobs. And he gave a very direct answer as to how he handles it with his team when his name gets leaked to the media. As you have success, your name is naturally going to be linked to other spots. I heard even Mike Elko, top 5 team in the country, best start in 35 years, being asked about other jobs. Obviously, you have success. You've coached in a lot of places. You played at certain places. How do you handle it? Is it a conversation that you have, or is it just, guys, we're full speed ahead? Because obviously there's a lot of outside noise about your name, but would be curious if it's something you even address with the guys.
Yeah. So during the summer, we do a speaker series every Wednesday. I brought Kellen Moore over from the Saints, and he talked to our team one Wednesday. I brought a financial planner in one Wednesday. I bring different people in to talk to our team. The last Wednesday, I talked to the team before we start training camp. And I really just addressed with them on that Wednesday meeting in late July, like, guys, no distractions are going to come up with this football team. And what I mean by that is when things are going bad, there may be fans or people on like Twitter or whatever the heck it's called now that are calling for me to get fired, right? And when things are going good, they may try to speculate like, hey, coach could go here or do that, do something else. Same thing with the assistant coaches. Like, if we play a great offensive game, everybody's going to talk about, man, Coach Craig should be on this watch list for a job. Or if we play a bad offensive game, they're going to talk about, like, how do we get him out of here? Like, let's run him out of town. Players deal with the same thing. Yep. Like, players now, they can probably appreciate this better now because there is player movement.
Yep.
There's players getting paid. So I said, guys, flip this to you guys as well. Man, we lost players off of last year's team. I referenced Darian, like, I don't know exactly what he's making, but he's making a lot of money. And I said, guys, some of y'all will be presented with decisions you have to make at the end of the year. Let's make them at the freaking end of the year. Like, it's October 23rd. Like, don't give me anything about my agent is telling me we should look at this transfer spot, or an assistant coach, my agent is telling me we should look at, when you look at that end of the year.
It's October 23rd. Don't give me any crap, players. So listen, first of all, if John Summerall doesn't fire you up talking about just no distractions, I don't know what has you fired up. I said it after we interviewed him. He gives me off the big Dan Lanning vibe, right? Like former defensive player, big, tough, mean, somebody you don't cross. And I mean mean in like a nice way, like not in like a, whatever. But I bring it up because, this is what I think happened on whatever it was, Wednesday afternoon. I think he maybe was set to meet with Florida. Maybe Florida is starting to look at backup options behind Lane Kiffin. And once it got out, I was going to say Dan Lanning. It wasn't Dan Lanning, but John Summerall was like, dude, don't do it. Like I said, the dating analogy, lose my number, do not call me again, okay? But I do think it does bring up a bigger issue, and a bigger question is, What happens with Florida if they don't get Lane Kiffin? And listen, I will tell you this right now. We've done this show Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and now Thursday. I will legitimately say that every single day, my opinion on Lane Kiffin changes. Is he staying? Is he going? How soon will it be announced? I'll say this. I think I said earlier in the week, I think by Friday we'll get some sort of clarification. He can't go into next week with the Egg Bowl, this over his head. He did a press conference yesterday. Didn't seem to mind answering questions about it. So I don't know what is going to happen with Lane Kiffin. But what I do know is Florida sure does feel like it's gotten all its eggs in one basket, and it's funny. We have an Arkansas fan in the chat right now mentioning, man, like we got to get our coaching search done because I'm starting to panic. And I think if you're a Florida fan, you kind of got to feel the same way, right? Because you go back to this time last year, we all know the story that has since gotten out from Ryan McGee. In mid to late October of last year, Florida boosters were openly going around town saying Lane Kiffin was a done deal. Well, Scott Strickland decides that he's sticking with Billy Napier. At the time, I sort of defended it. DJ Lagway was starting to play well, whatever. But man, oh man, you don't get Lane Kiffin last year. And now look at the situation and predicament that you're in. All this stuff leaks this week. You really have no privacy as far as being able to at least talk with him or talk with the family. It's all out in the public. And then beyond that, it's putting pressure on him to make a decision quicker than he probably wanted to. I really think Lane Kiffin in the back of his head said, I can keep this under wraps. I don't have to talk about it. I can say what I said after the Florida football game a few days ago, that it's disrespectful to the players. Well, once it gets leaked that your family is basically doing a pseudo SEC tour, it kind of puts that on the back burner. You can't really say it's disrespect. No, you know what's disrespectful to the players? Having your family fly all over the Southeast looking for other opportunities and other head coaching jobs. And so I just bring it up because I think more than ever, Florida needs to be trying to figure out what is plan B if Lane Kiffin is not available. And I don't know that there's a good answer. One, I think Scott Strickland, I know he just got that extension, but he's already not very popular in Gainesville circles. Listen, we know the backstory. Hired Dan Mullen, did not work out. Hired Billy Napier, certainly did not work out. He was also involved with Jim McElwain as well. And, he got a little bit of a pass over the summer. Todd Golden wins a national championship in basketball. Billy Napier gets to 8 wins. You sit there and think, things are trending up. He gets an extension. Well, now he has to fire Billy Napier, and I'll take it a step further. If he does not land Lane Kiffin, I don't know if he'll be fired day one. What I do know is, basically just you might as well start packing the bags and looking for your next job now. And I think what also becomes interesting with Strickland and Florida is once you get past Lane Kiffin, there aren't a lot of great candidates for that job, right? First of all, the Summerall thing, it was really interesting to just see the reaction from Florida fans during the small window where we thought Summerall was speaking with Florida. They were not happy with it. Summerall is a near universally respected name. As I mentioned, Auburn fans want him. Kentucky fans, if things go sideways with Mark Stoops, wants him. And oh, by the way, I think even LSU fans are opening up to the idea of we could do a lot worse than this guy. Florida fans are like, dude, we just survived the Sun Belt Billy era. We don't need, Akon John or whatever. I stole that from Twitter. I did see that. I don't think they call it the Akon, but you get the point. So if you don't get Kiffin, I don't even know where you go. Listen, Marcus Freeman is not coming. Drinkwitz, he's a big name. He's in the SEC. I don't know that rallies that fan base. And so if you don't have somebody big lined up, and if you can't get Lane Kiffin, if there isn't some crazy wild card that we don't know about, somebody from the NFL or a sitting head coach that we don't realize is interested in the job, I think you're kind of screwed. And so it's absolutely fascinating. And I am just curious, where does Florida go if they don't get Lane Kiffin? It's absolutely fascinating. John Summerall is clearly off the board. And we'll see again increasingly if Lane Kiffin is off the board as well. Really quick Lane Kiffin update. He was basically asked on whatever day it was. I guess it would have been Wednesday. I guess, I thought he didn't have media availability this week, but I guess the Wednesday teleconference, which is open to the national media and kind of, whatever. I guess even when you're on your bye week, you're obligated to do it. So he did do media, and he was basically asked, I think it was the Athletics' Chris Vanini, like, are you planning on coaching in the Egg Bowl? And like, I don't think he answered in a mean way, but he's like, why wouldn't I be coaching in the Egg Bowl? So he doesn't seem to think that there's any deadline on him. We talked about it. I believe that Ole Miss does want some sort of clarification. Bring it up because it's getting crazy. But if Lane Kiffin does not end up at Florida, like, I don't even know where they go from there. And as I said, Scott Strickland, you might as well start packing your bags if you don't land the Lane train. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. When we do, kind of want to just go quickly through this weekend in college football. Not a ton of mega matchups, but I'll tell you what, with this expanded playoff, a lot at stake, not only with USC, Oregon, but Oklahoma in the SEC, BYU in the Big 12, on and on. Fascinating weekend. Vandy, Kentucky now takes on added stakes. We'll take a quick break, come back, talk week 13 of the college football season. All right, we're going to get back to the show in a minute, but before we do, I have so many people that reach out and say, Torres, you give me hours and hours and hours of free content every day, every month, every year. What can I do to help support the show? Well, you want to support the show and look good in the process. Make sure to check out and support the Aaron Torres Media merch store at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. Some of you wondering, what can I get in that merch store, Torres? Well, Kentucky fans, we got our Mark Pope Hope and Pope t-shirts. That is right. Mark Pope, monster first year. Year 2 is going to be even better. Get your Hope and Pope t-shirt at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. Arkansas fans, the big pig invasion is coming. It is here. John Calipari has things rocking. Get your big pig invasion tees. Again, aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. St. John's fans, we have our Big Rick Energy t-shirts. And if you're just a college basketball fan in general, guess what? Your March is for Day Drinking shirt. That is the shirt that you need year-round, but especially for the next NCAA tournament. You can order yours now. By the way, football fans, we got you covered too. Nebraska fans, new era, new rules, the t-shirt that you need before the start of this coming season. And oh, by the way, if you're a Colorado fan, if you're just a Coach Prime fan, we have our Dion shirts and hats, more of them than we know what to do with. So to check out the full line of Aaron Torres Media merch and also support the show, good news is we're going to have even more for the fall. Check out the Aaron Torres Media merch store at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. And for more information, you can always reach out at Aaron Torres Podcast Questions at gmail.com. All right, everybody. I'm back. Good to be back. Do want to get to a couple Florida-related questions before we get to this weekend in college football. You know, Adam, I think this is the elephant in the room, is that Adam says Florida did not consider LSU firing Brian Kelly when they did, but the fan base will not tolerate a group of 5 Louisiana head coach. Listen, I get it. You know, again, let's use the dating analogy. If you date someone that has certain traits and it's a total train wreck, you're probably not going back to those demographics. So it totally makes sense. He does bring up an interesting point. Watch Jedd Fisch if Kiffin isn't leaving. He is a Florida alum. So 2 very quick things on Jedd Fisch. One, he is a Florida alum. Well, that's not the one. The thing that worries me about Jedd Fisch, if you're Florida, he's got a $12 million buyout at Washington. And like, first of all, it's getting weirdly toxic up there. Nobody's talking about it because a lot of people don't cover Washington. It's getting weirdly toxic up at Washington right now with the Jedd Fisch situation. He won't commit. He sort of committed to being there long-term, but not really. He is a Florida alum. The buyout bothers me. You know what else bothers me, Adam? As a UConn alum, if Jedd Fisch leaves, I think Jim Mora, the UConn head coach who has UConn trending towards a 10-win season as an independent, I think Jim Mora would be the logical next candidate at Washington. So get Lane Kiffin so Jedd Fisch stays, so I think I got to worry about losing Jim Mora. Really quickly, there was one other one that I wanted to talk about here. Where was it? This is good from Mike. Mike says, LSU will accept not getting Kiffin. I agree with that, but Florida fan base will go totally nutty in a meltdown if he rejects them. I agree. You know, I think it's weird. LSU, it's an interesting search because it feels to me like they're just like, dude, it's so dysfunctional behind the scenes that we have no idea what to expect. But I also think there's like an LSU variable of We've been awesome with wild head coaches before, so we're not actually that worried about it. Like, I do think Florida, all the chips are in the middle on Lane Kiffin. If they do not get him, they're going to freak the you-know-what out. I agree with Mike saying that LSU, I think LSU fans are just like, hey, it's not Brian Kelly, so we'll take it. We've won a natty with Coach O. We've won a natty with Les Miles. We'll figure it out. We're LSU. Really quickly, do want to talk Week 13 of the college football slate. Week 13, all lines presented by Circa Sportsbook. And I want to do something a little bit different. As a matter of fact, before we get to that, I do want to thank very quickly our friends and our official ticketing partner, as you can see on the top of the screen, SeatGeek and the SeatGeek app. Okay, so it's that time of year. Maybe you're a Florida fan. Maybe the basketball team's playing well, the football team isn't. Maybe you're an LSU fan and you want to go to a women's basketball game. Well, guess what? What you need is SeatGeek. It is America's #1 ticketing app, over 28 million downloads. And what I love about SeatGeek is two things. One, they take the guesswork out of buying tickets, right? Every ticket is rated 1 through 10, a green dot or a red dot. Green dot means go ahead and purchase that puppy. Red dot means probably want to stay away from that one. Same time, what I really love about SeatGeek is the fact that they take care of listeners of the Aaron Torres pod. If you want to go to any show, any concert, any game, college football, college basketball, whatever, SeatGeek.com, if you use promo code Torres, it gets you $20 off your first purchase. SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres. SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres gets you $20 off. Paul just left the chat, said he had to run, but he just used it to go to an A&M game a few weeks ago. SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres. We appreciate your support. All right, let's keep the conversation going. By the way, one last CFB conversation that cracks me up. Phil says basically Florida fans don't want the Sun Belt, the G5 coach from the state of Louisiana. Arkansas fans are rejecting Eric Morris, who I actually think is a really good coach because his last name is Morris. As you may remember, the Chad Morris era did not go well. All right, let's get off college football coaching and get to college football games. Again, all point spreads presented by Circa Sportsbook. And what I want to do, I'm not going to make so many as picks as much as just talk about the implications, because there is a lot at stake, especially now with this 12-team college football playoff. Let's start with the big game. It is obviously USC at Oregon. Oregon, a 9.5-point favorite, over under set at 60.5. I'll say this, I think for the first time over the last 24 to 48 hours, people are starting to realize, like, there really ain't that much of a resume for Oregon. And so this game is quietly important. Certainly if USC wins, all of a sudden they're very much in the college football playoff race. But I'm not totally sold that Oregon is really exactly where they need to be. They're ranked really high, and certainly if they were to win this game, they're going to be in the college football playoff, assuming, of course, that they beat Washington the last game of the regular season. But the counter to that with Oregon is, if you actually look at the resume, the Penn State win we thought was great in the moment, it isn't anymore. And so you lose to Indiana. You don't have Ohio State on the schedule. You don't have Michigan on the schedule. All of a sudden, you don't have very much of a resume at all when you factor in that you lost to Indiana. Best win probably at Iowa. And so that's what makes this game so important. Is I was always a believer that if you are a 10-2 SEC or Big Ten team, or certainly 12-0, 11-1, but if you're 10-2, you're getting into the college football playoff. Well, go ahead and look at this season. That is not going to happen, because if Oregon were to lose this game, here is who would be ahead of them in the standings: Ohio State, Indiana, USC with the head-to-head win. And don't forget that Michigan, of course, has a pathway to 10-2 as well. So Oregon needs to win this game. I think what's interesting is a couple things. One, you can't say that USC isn't battle-tested at this point. They just beat Iowa at home. I mentioned it on Sunday's show. If we're going to criticize Lincoln Riley for everything, every loss, every recruiting loss, every five-star that flips, every transfer portal guy that he doesn't get, we also got to give him credit. They're quietly 8-2. And I think more importantly, they're winning games in the manner that you need to in the Big Ten. Physicality, line of scrimmage, run play. They beat Iowa at home last week. They beat Nebraska on the road. They beat Michigan at home. And I think they're exactly what the resume says they are, about a top 15 team that needs this win to prove they belong in the college football playoff conversation. I know I said I wasn't going to give picks, but I'll be honest. I actually like USC to keep this close. I I might take them outright. I'm not totally sure. But if I was making a pick, I would take USC plus 9.5. To me, what they remind me of is as we get deeper into this college football 12-team playoff era, it's almost like the 3 seed in the NCAA tournament that doesn't have the overall resume to get a number 1 overall seed in the basketball tournament, but they get in, they're a 3 seed, and by the end of the year, you're like, oh, they're not a top 5 team, but they can mess around and compete with anybody. USC, to its credit, runs the ball. They take care of the football, and the defense is improved. Oregon obviously beat up all at the skill position spots. I would also add on top of it, Oregon's pass defense is really good. Their run defense is okay. I like USC to keep it close. I think they potentially pull off the upset. And as I said, if USC gets this win, not only are they very much in the playoff picture, I think, by the way, that probably eliminates Oregon from the playoff picture unless there's absolute calamity the final week of the regular season. A couple other games of note. I just want to mention Michigan at Maryland. Michigan is facing Maryland. They're a 13.5-point favorite at Maryland. Big story here, 2 things. One, Maryland, Mike Locksley gets the extension that nobody wants. I think the AD is just like, I can't be paying this buyout right now. We're Maryland. We're broke. But I bring it up because, is Maryland motivated? Is Michigan looking ahead? And Michigan is quietly the quietest 8-2 team in the history of college football, or at least the quietest 8-2 team in this 12-team playoff era. Last week struggled against Northwestern, 5 turnovers, still managed to win that game. But I'll tell you what, if they win this game, they're going into Ohio State next week on a 4-game win streak at home. And they beat Ohio State. They're going to be 10-2 with one of the best wins in college football. They're going to have an argument for the college football playoff. Now, the knock on them would be a couple things. Is one, they would have the head-to-head loss to USC and head-to-head loss to Oklahoma, 2 teams that both are 2-loss teams as well. The counter to that is, and I could be wrong on this, I believe if Michigan were to beat Ohio State, Michigan would actually be the second team in the Big Ten championship game. It would be Indiana versus Michigan, the plot twist that no one saw coming. So I just bring it up. There is a lot at stake. Before we can get to Ohio State, Michigan has to beat Maryland. It would be the wildest thing ever if Michigan won out, goes to the Big Ten championship game. And you talk about a lot of teams that would be nervous about the college football playoff. USC, Oklahoma, Notre Dame, a second Big 12 team, Miami as an at-large team. A lot of people should be rooting against Michigan this weekend, against Maryland, certainly next weekend against Ohio State. All right, really quickly, let's go through some of the other ones. The Big 12, listen, if you listen to yesterday's show, I am an advocate for BYU. All I believe about BYU is pretty straightforward, is that, listen, if you told us all offseason long that strength of record is the metric of record, basically, for lack of a better term, and that's how we need to judge teams, then we need to judge teams during the season with that metric. And based on that metric, the fact that they're 9-1, only lost at Texas Tech, this is a team that should be higher in the rankings. I believe they should be higher than Oregon and higher than Notre Dame right now. Based on the actual resume, I believe they should be in the playoff right now over those teams. Now, the big question becomes, can they beat Cincinnati on the road? Cincinnati is a good team, just missed the top 25, did lose to Utah last week. BYU, a 2-point favorite in the Circus Sportsbook, over under 53.5. I think the big thing for BYU, can't fall down like you have the last few weeks, right? If you remember the stat we talked about going into the Texas Tech game a few weeks ago, BYU has fallen down double figures in every single Big 12 road game this year. Can't be doing that here. Got to come out, got to dominate. You win this game, all of a sudden you go into the final week. I think you go into the final week being in position to potentially go to the Big 12 championship game, make the playoff. But you lose this game, everything you've worked for, your season's not over, but you're probably not going to the Big 12 championship game, and any chance of an at-large bid is gone. Fascinating game, maybe along with USC, Oregon, Oklahoma, Missouri, which we'll get into in a minute, the most consequential game. Other game in the Big 12, Kansas State at Utah. Utah is a 17-point favorite, over under 52.5 in this game. Kansas State, it's been a long road since week 0, huh? A lot of Avery Johnson hype in week 0 in Dublin. Ever since his dad body slammed his brother into the ground, it's been all downhill for K-State. Utah's an interesting one because Utah, it's a weird thing. I kind of feel bad. They're number 12 in the rankings. They basically have no pathway to the college football playoff other than chaos around them in the Big 12, getting to the Big 12 championship game and winning. Remember, they're 9-2 right now, or 8-2, I should say. This is Utah. They are ranked number 12 in the country, but their 2 losses, Texas Tech and BYU. And when you have losses to the 2 teams ahead of you in the rankings, and you're a 2-loss team, you just don't have much of a resume to stand on. So Utah, who I think is playing well, who I think could beat either Texas Tech or BYU in the Big 12 championship game, and who I think could win a playoff game, they're just kind of in no man's land right now. Have to win this game. If they win this game and BYU loses, I think they are now would be the projected team to be in the Big 12 championship game alongside Texas Tech, but got to get this win. Utah, kind of one of those teams. They're one of the few teams, they don't control their own fate. Like they could win out and it could mean nothing. They need help around them, but they are not out of the playoff picture. Really quickly, let's get to the SEC. The big one, Missouri at Oklahoma. Oklahoma, a 9-point favorite in the Circus Sportsbook, over under 42.5. I'll just say this, man. A lot of good vibes would go out the window if Oklahoma does not win this game. They are a 9-point favorite. Listen, what Brent Venables has done, we talked about it earlier in this week. It is incredible, right? You take over this program. There's been ups and downs, but the last 2 games, to go on the road at Tennessee, to go on the road in Tuscaloosa and get wins, Oklahoma deserves everything that is coming to them right now, that number 8 ranking. And as we said, if they win out, they're going to be in the college football playoff. The one thing I will say, do not sleep on this Missouri team. Listen, I know I just bashed Eli Drinkowitz last segment with the Florida coaching job, but the counter to that is, listen, Missouri is 7-3 right now. They're a solid team. And you look at their 3 losses. Yeah, they got beat up by A&M, like everybody not named South Carolina and I guess Notre Dame. They got beat up by A&M, but 3-point loss to Alabama at home, 7-point loss at Vandy. And don't forget, that Vandy game came down to the final play where Missouri could have tied it. Top 10 defense. Oklahoma's offense has struggled all year. I don't think this is a layup. I would certainly take Missouri plus the points. It would not stun me if Missouri pulled off the outright upset. I like the Oklahoma story, but I think we can all admit the offense is kind of, So they faced the wrong defense on the wrong day. It could be ugly. I'll take Missouri plus the points. I'll take Oklahoma to win outright, but this one would not shock me at all. Another game in the SEC with playoff implications. Vandy's sitting there right now at 8-2. They're a 9.5-point favorite, over under 53.5 against Kentucky. Vandy, I think, is probably in that Utah category of, I don't know if they control their own destiny to go to the college football playoff. They have 2 losses. Obviously, the losses, to Alabama, and then the other loss they just took the other day to whoever. I'm blanking on who they lost to, but basically, to me, it was Texas. I apologize. They lost at Texas, rally late, whatever. I don't know that they have a pathway. I just don't know that they do. They certainly have to win this game. If you beat Tennessee, now Tennessee needs to win their game this weekend to make it a top 25 matchup next week. We'll talk about that game in half a second. But I just bring it up because to me, I think Kentucky's playing really well. 3 straight wins. I think they can pull off the upset. Vandy has to win this game. I would take Kentucky plus the points, but I think Vandy does win. And again, they probably need a little bit of help along the way. Tennessee winning is important to them. I think Oklahoma losing helps them. I think BYU losing helps them. I think they're on the fringes of the playoff conversation. Last SEC game of note, I just mentioned it, Tennessee, Florida. I hate that it's late in the season. And not only do I hate that it's late in the season, I hate that it's not that it has no stakes, but it doesn't. If this game should have been in week 3 like it always is. Either way, Tennessee has not won in the Swamp since 2003. That is just bananas, okay? And so I bring it up because Florida is a mess right now. We've seen them these last couple weeks. They fought hard against Ole Miss. They got blown out by Kentucky. I don't know what to make of this game. You want to bet it, that's fine. Total stay away to me. Tennessee, a 3.5-point favorite, basically means Vegas has no idea what to make of this. They are a 3.5-point favorite in the Circus Sportsbook, but a stay away to me. All right, so what we're going to do, we are going to come back, and we're going to switch gears to college hoops. Really quickly, one game from Wednesday night. It got the internet talking. Top 5 matchups, Stores, Connecticut, $2 beer night at UConn. We'll come back and talk about a dominant Arizona, not a dominant, but a great Arizona win and what it means for the college hoops conversation. All right, we're going to get back to the show in a minute, but before we do, you know what we got to do. We got to thank our friends. We got to thank our partners. We got to go ahead and thank Cauley Puffs and CauleyPuffs.com. Yeah, you see the logo on the back of the screen right here. Okay, so I've told you all about Cauley Puffs, but family-owned company, not far from where I live. Joey, a huge sports fan, and one day he was sitting on the couch and he said, you know what? I need a snack that is both healthy but delicious, something my kids are going to love, something my family's going to love, something I'm going to love. And so he came up with Cauley Puffs. This is the new age health food snack. You don't need to go to the grocery aisle and buy all that crap, the Doritos, the Fritos. No, my friends, you need Cauley Puffs. Baked, not fried, avocado oil, no grease, healthy ingredients. But here's the best part. They taste freaking delicious. Actually, there's another best part. In addition to tasting delicious, in addition to being healthy, they are also taking care of listeners of the Aaron Torres pod. Okay, so check this out. All you got to do is go to CauleyPuffs.com. That's CauleyPuffs.com, CauleyPuffs.com, and you can get 15% off any purchase with the promo code Torres. That's Torres, Torres. It's that simple. 15% off any purchase, 1 bag to try them out, 100 bags to cater a party. Doesn't really matter. Promo code Torres. CauleyPuffs.com gets you 15% off. Cauley Puffs also available on Amazon. You obviously can't get the promo code there, but CauleyPuffs.com, CauleyPuffs.com, promo code Torres gets you 15% off any purchase. Thank you to our friends at Cauley Puffs. I'm back. Good to be back. Good to be back. Final segment of the show. So good to be back. By the way, thank you again to our partners at Cauley Puffs. I mentioned it the other day, talked to our rep. He was thrilled with the promo code Torres, 15% off. If you need a snack for the holidays, if you need a snack, you want to try them while you're at the Thanksgiving dinner table, the Christmas table, whatever, CauleyPuffs.com. If you use promo code Torres, it gets you 15% off. Speaking of Torres, my alma mater had a pretty big one on Wednesday night in Gamble Pavilion. Okay, so we're going to switch gears to college basketball. One game of note in the world of college hoops on Wednesday, but it was a big one. Top 5 matchup. I mentioned this on yesterday's show. First top 5 matchup at Gamble Pavilion since February of 2006. That's noteworthy because yours truly was still on campus. I was at Villanova, UConn in 2006. I was certainly not at Arizona, UConn on Wednesday night. Well, I bring it up because the game in 06 was a blowout. It was a big party. It was fun. It wasn't even close. It was certainly the opposite on Wednesday night. It was a thriller. It was awesome. It was a fun game. UConn falls to Arizona at home. Final score 71-67. We got to talk about both teams, but I'll tell you this. Saw Arizona in person in Vegas against Florida, and with the wins that they have, they should be the number 1 team in college basketball come next Monday. As far as this game is concerned, listen, before we get into it, I don't want to diminish anything Arizona did on the court on Wednesday night. It was disappointing, though. We found out just minutes before tip-off that Terrace Reed, UConn starting center, 20-10 is what he's averaging this year, had 21-8 against BYU on Saturday night. He was not available for this game because of injury. Okay, so he's out with an ankle injury. And right away, I knew UConn was in trouble. Not diminishing what Arizona did, but at the same time, Arizona already has one of the best front courts in college basketball. UConn, I think, basically has, I would say, like one that keep going on. How does the mic sound? Test. I'm being told my mic does not sound good. Is it better, worse, the same? In and out. Hold on one second. Hold on 1 second. You can't hear me? You can hear me? This is annoying. How's my mic? Test. Okay, cool. All right, 3, 2, 1. Give me a sec. gotta catch my breath here. Catch my breath. All right. 3, 2, 1. Matt obviously cut this out. I'll cut this out of the audio pod. So we had a little mic issue there. I apologize. Let's get back to it. Listen, so the big story coming in, I don't want to diminish what Arizona did, but at the same time, it was just such a bummer to find out minutes before tip-off, Torres Reed, the starting center at UConn, was not available for this game. It is an ankle injury. This was a guy that's averaging 20 and 10 coming into this game, had 21 and 8 against BYU. And so it obviously changed the dynamics of this game, especially against an Arizona team that has maybe the best front court in college basketball. Koa Pete, we saw what he did against Florida a few weeks ago. Krivas, I like him. I know he's kind of a little bit of a polarizing player in the Arizona community, but I just bring it up because it did impact the game, and Arizona, I thought, did a good job of dictating tempo early. UConn without Torres Reed does not have a lot of size down low to use a line that my buddy Mike Luke uses. My buddy Mike Luke is probably I would argue, the best guy covering Arizona basketball right now. He likes to use the word girth for his team. UConn is not nearly as girthy as Arizona is, and so I knew that was going to be a disadvantage. Toby Awaka playing very well off the bench with 7 points and 7 rebounds. And so I bring it up because Arizona dictated things early. Arizona got some of UConn's best players in foul trouble early, and Arizona not only took a 2-point lead into halftime, they had as much as a 10-point lead with about, 13, 14 minutes to go. Well, I'll tell you what, I give credit to UConn because outside of the freshman Eric Ryba, who was forced into action because Torres Reed was hurt, I don't know if anyone at UConn played that well. Again, I am not criticizing Arizona. It's a great win, but I just bring it up because UConn put on their big boy pants and started making plays. Eric Ryba, true freshman, as I said, originally from Germany, played high school basketball last year. He was the guiding force late in that run, right? Finishes the game with a team-high 15 points to go along with 4 rebounds, hits 2 3-pointers, including one late that made the game very interesting. And Malachi Smith, another guy who was kind of forced into action because Silas Demery was in trouble, makes a couple big plays late, including a bucket to basically cut Arizona's lead to whatever. Bring it up because late in the game, my guy, Jaden Bradley, with the big bucket to give Arizona the lead. Arizona holds on. Arizona gets the victory, okay? So first of all, as far as Arizona is concerned, a couple things. One, listen, Koa Pete is going to get the attention. He's a freshman. He's the better NBA draft prospect. Jaden Bradley won them that game. Jaden Bradley, I think he's the most underrated player in college basketball. And I've done my Arizona rant. I think they're probably the most underrated, not now, but coming into the year. I said they're the most undervalued team coming in. I don't get it. Jaden Bradley, they have these watch lists for preseason point guard of the year, center of the year, power forward, whatever. Jaden Bradley did not make the preseason point guard watch list. And I know in Arizona, they were not happy about that. Well, 21 points in this game, and he really took over this game late. As far as Arizona is concerned, besides that, what I would say is a couple things. One, I think what's incredible is 2 things. One, they should be the number 1 team in the country going into next week. I understand Purdue's number 1, Houston's number 2, neither of them has lost. I don't really care. Nobody has a resume like Arizona. To go on the road, by the way, credit to both of these teams for scheduling this game. UConn will go to Tucson in probably the fall of 2026. So next season, I might even go out for that game. But I just bring it up because it's awesome that we did that we had this game on a true campus environment. Tommy Lloyd said after the game it was the first time that he had ever been to Stores, and what a privilege it was for him to coach. And if you're Arizona, I think 2 things are true. One, you should, and by the way, Matt, this can be your 2-minute clip. One, Arizona should be the number 1 team in the country. Look at the resume. It speaks for itself. Win over the defending champion Florida. Win over UCLA in LA. It was obviously a very pro UCLA crowd, although Arizona always gets a ton of people in the building in LA. And you beat UConn on the road in their place on $2 beer night. It was insanity. This team is unbelievable. Here is the scary part about Arizona as well. They're not playing their best basketball. And you know how I know they're not playing their best basketball? Because Braden Burries, their McDonald's All-American guard, is not playing well. He got 2 quick fouls within minutes of starting this game. He ends up only playing 19 minutes and scoring 4 points total in this game. This is a guy that was a top 10 recruit in this, what we now know was just an absurd class of AJ DeBonsa, Cam Boozer, Caleb Wilson, Darren Peterson, Nate Amen, Chris Sinak, Darius Acuff, Malik Thomas. I could go on and on down the list. That class was insane, and Braden Burries was considered as good of a guard as anybody. And so it's actually a positive for Arizona that you should be the number one team in the country. And then on top of that, you're doing it without your third scorer, a guy that you were counting on. And so if you're Arizona, to quote Michael Jordan, remember that Michael Jordan line where he messed it up? He was supposed to say, the sky is the limit. Instead, he said, the ceiling is the roof. Well, the ceiling is the roof for Arizona. There is no ceiling, or maybe it was the sky is the limit. Whatever. The ceiling is the roof. The sky is the limit. If you're an Arizona fan, you should be fired up. A couple quick things. One, nice thing is you get a little bit of a lull here over Thanksgiving. Just kind of relax, get home, get the guys home for a few days. You do play the double dip of Auburn at home, Alabama and Birmingham in early December, so that's worth monitoring. But Arizona, I don't think it's crazy to think that they're going to go into Big 12 play with a loss or two. Just give them so much credit with what they've done. And by the way, I know everyone's going to say, oh, Arizona always starts off hot. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm a prisoner of the moment. This does feel different, though. Jaden Bradley is a legitimate first-team McDonald's All-American. Koa Pete is a legitimate 20-10 guy. Krivas is a legitimate problem down low. Karchenkov has been really good. And then on top of it, you're not getting much from Braden Burries. Give Arizona credit for this win. It was unbelievable. Really quickly, 2 seconds on UConn. UConn is, in my opinion, has nothing to worry about. The biggest thing for UConn, they have to get healthy, right? It's crazy to me. We're not going to play the sound. I don't have time. Dan Hurley said, we're the basketball capital of the world, but we're also the ankle injury capital of the world. We have to get healthy. Braylon Mullins, their McDonald's All-American, was not available. Probably their best three-point shooter. Terrace Reed, their 20-10 center, was not available either. And so with UConn, all I'll say really quick is that UConn, I know the UConn fan base well, and I know that they are not afraid to express frustration with the program. I did not see a single UConn fan complaining about this result. I think they understand we got to get healthy, but UConn does have to get healthy. They have Illinois on Black Friday. That is their next big game a week from tomorrow. All right, I got to go ahead and get out of here. Make sure you're subscribed, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Rate, review the show. SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres. CawleyPuffs.com, 15% off your purchase. I'll be back Sunday morning. Quick show today. Gotta run. Wish I could